And my name is Donna Freedman. I've made a living as a writer for more than 30 years, which is longer than a lot of you have been alive. Since 2007, I've specialized in personal finance. I do have the Write a Blog People Will Read course, and I just came out with a book, and I'm just so proud, called Your Playbook for Tough Times. And so this is my visual aid. And my daughter wrote a book, too, so what's good having a kid if you can't brag about her? So there's that. But I'm really not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about writing. So having the well run dry. Has anybody ever had that fear? What am I going to write about today, tomorrow, next week? When will this ever end? So even if you don't have a daily site, you are probably aiming at 2 or 3 posts per week. No pressure. Newspaper journalists, which I was for 18 years, called this feeding the beast. So there's your beast. You're feeding. It's not pretty. The relentless hunger of the blog beast is really daunting. What if you run out of ideas? What then? The short form is you're not going to if you keep these tactics in mind. And I know that they work because I've been freelancing since 2002 and blogging since 2007 for other people, and then since 2010 for myself at donnafreedman.com. Keeping the steady stream of ideas flowing really simplifies your blogging life. You don't spend a lot of hours spinning your wheels, wondering what to write, worrying about what to write. Best of all, you will always have something to write about. That's something that is worth writing about. Versus falling back too often on posts like, not much to say, just thought I'd check in and say hi. How many posts like that have you read? Or, hey, look at this cute cat video. But unless you give your readers a reason to come back, you're going to lose them. So let's get started. Just go. Reading is one of the simplest ways to find ideas. Not just reading the newspaper, if you still do that, or CNN or whatever. Read news, whether it's online or on dead trees. Not to copy what other people are doing, but to get a feel for what's going on out there. If major news organs are all wailing about gasoline prices since the pipeline spill or the student loan crisis, maybe you should check those things out because there might be a tack you can take there. Read other people's blogs and bounce off them. How many people do that? It's not that you're copying them, but I'll read something Joe wrote and think, he really had a good point there. And I'll say on Joe's site, and always link to Joe's site, he said this. Here's what I think about what he said. Then you can come up with some really good posts that way. Read Craigslist ads. Read the fine print on bills. Read flyers taped up on telephone poles. You never know where an idea is going to come from. Read ads on the bus. Read cookbooks and then do a post called 5 gourmet meals from a $5 chicken. I mean, really, these are things that people love to read. You never know where a story idea is going to pop up, so keep reading. Second tactic is following up. When you hear something that intrigues you, amuses you, enrages you, or scares you, follow up. My high school journalism teacher called that having a nose for news. Cute, huh? Anything that makes you go, could be a blog post. Suppose a librarian that when you're checking out mentions, I've had a 50% increase in people coming in here in the last year. Why is that? Is it because people can't afford to buy their own books? Is it because people are looking for tactics on survival? Is it because people are bored with television? Anyway, contact the American Library Association and say, nationwide, what are the rates of readership like? If your buddy who works for the Transit Authority says, boy, the buses are full, people are standing, contact the National Transportation Safety Board or somewhere and say, are people driving less? Why? Do some research that finds out, is it gas prices? Is it not wanting to own a car? Is it insurance prices? Is it my car got repoed? Find out. Follow up. If 5 of your friends are using 5 different apps, ask them why. Maybe there's a post on apps that save you money. But better would be apps that saved my friends $11,000 last year. People are going to click on that. They want to know how to save $11,000. Writing what you know, that's always the old saw. Write what you know. If you're an Uber driver, tell us about it. If you bought a foreclosure to fix it up and flip it, tell us about that too. But tell us about both the pitfalls as well as the potential. If you're an at-home parent, talk about the kinds of frugal hacks that made this possible. But also, you could share whether you're worrying about funding your retirement or whether you're going to get to the mommy track when you get back to work. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. It's a very real fear. And remember, first-person writing can get really precious really fast. I was in newspapers for 18 years, excuse me, where I was told, you are not the story. Stay out of it. With blogging, you pretty much are the story. So don't be self-indulgent, and again, give the reader an entry point. If you say, oh, I've been an Uber driver for 20 weeks now, and it's so great, and I love it, and I meet interesting people, it starts to sound like the teacher in the Charlie Brown special. But say, I had a $3,000 debt that I couldn't retire, and I joined Uber, and it's retired, and now I'm attacking my student debt. So maybe you could do a side hustle. Here's how to do a side hustle. So it's write what you know. Everybody loves a success story, but you'll also be giving the readers tools they need to help their own lives. So the next tactic is kind of related. Write what you don't know. Attack a topic that confounds you, research the heck out of it, and explain it to those of us who are similarly confounded. Applying for the 401k at my new job showed me what I don't know about investing. Here's how I schooled myself. I thought an Uber driver job would be great. After a ton of reading and talking with my insurance agent and other drivers, I decided against it. Here's what I learned. Here's why. Or, my partner and I want to live off the grid. Here's what has to happen first. Because a lot of people who have this dream of living off the grid have no idea what that really means. Or, my partner and I want to retire early. Here's what has to happen first. Who here exchanges posts with other writers? Anybody ever do that? Go you. Topics you think you've done to death and nobody wants to hear about any longer, like your Uber job, really, maybe nobody on Joe's site has read about that. Maybe that he would love that, and maybe he'd like to give you something. And each of you gets new eyes on the site and maybe new subscribers. But please make sure it is a fair trade, because don't give somebody 3 posts in a row and he never gives you anything back because you don't make him give you something back. Make sure reciprocity is a thing. And you did bring business cards, right? Start exchanging those when you meet like-minded writers. You did bring business cards, didn't you? Good. The next tactic is revisit old posts. A lot of options here. I call them scorekeeper pieces often when you say, since weatherizing my home last year, I've saved $800 on utility costs, and have paid for themselves in the next year. And did I mention the weatherization credit? Telling people they should weatherize is one thing. Telling them how much you're saving by doing it and how much more comfortable you are and how good you feel about your carbon footprint will encourage them to want to do the same thing. Or update readers on the progress of that side hustle you wrote about, and talk about how much debt you've paid down in the last 6 months because of the side hustle. And again, don't be afraid to reveal goofs. Readers love fails. They love it. They love it when they find out, I was going to plant a garden last year and save on my grocery bill. We spent $400 on materials and supplies, and we got 7 tomatoes. People love that. But then you have to follow up with, here's how we're going to do it differently next year. Here's how we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, the bonus, when you link to the original post, they're going to go back and read it so you get extra page views. Double dipping. Double dipping. The next tactic is listen. What are people talking about these days? What are they complaining about these days? Are they bemoaning the cost of weddings, or how much it costs to eat organic, or how much their health insurance went up? Does your favorite coffee shop have a regular coffee clutch of people who try to make sense of the world out loud? Maybe people who sit there. We used to call it the Spit and Argue Club. What about the post-church fellowship? Are people eating bear claws and drinking coffee and talking about the successes and fails in their own lives? There's probably a story there. If you listen to people around you, you are guaranteed to come up with story ideas. Almost as good as listening, eavesdropping. What are people talking about at the bus stop, in the beauty salon, in the bar, on public transit, in line at the grocery store. And again, think of a slow-moving line as your own mini focus group, because you can either listen to what they're saying or chime in and see if they'll let you talk about it too. Don't listen to them when they're talking about things like, my boss is a jerk, or my boyfriend stood me up. But other themes that pop up, like the impossibility of getting ahead. If you're in line and people are saying, I just can't stay ahead of my bills, I don't have a dime saved for retirement, or I found a way that I can save a few dollars a week for retirement, and I've got $600, and I'm so encouraged. Listen, there's something going on there. If they're all talking about how they've suddenly learned to cook because they had to, there's something going on there you could write about. The pros and cons of having children, definitely something worth writing about. And the following up tactic works here. If you hear 6 people in 6 different places deciding to keep their cars an extra couple of years, go look for stats on how often people change cars. Find out whether that seems to be changing nationwide and how much difference it can make to the bottom line. There's your post. Want to save $250,000 during your lifetime? Keep your car for 10 years instead of 5. That gets people's attention. They have no idea how much it costs to run a car. And that stat's available on AAA's website. They do it for 4 different classes of vehicles, and it runs upwards of $10,000 a year to keep a car. And by the way, don't be so obvious with your eavesdropping that you get called out or punched out. Stay on top of the news. I actually still read newspapers, probably because I used to work for them. Does anybody here still read newspapers, physical papers? Yay! Dead trees. I mentioned read everything a while ago, but I'd like to elaborate on the news in particular. Personal finance bloggers are likely to stick with money and business, but personal finance is where you find it. If somebody in the features section has written about a new study on the gluten-free lifestyle or the environmental impact of bicycle lanes, there could be a story there that you could get the material, look up the original study, read it, process it, and tell us not just what the agency thinks, but what you think. Because you are us. You are not a bureaucrat in Washington. You are not only going to help us understand this, you're going to maybe help us think about it differently. Excuse me. So especially when you're talking about regional news, that's a big help because you can demystify a confusing topic. If they're talking about the mill rate in the city of San Diego, most of us don't know what that really means. We think it's all done with mirrors. And if you can explain a really complex topic or even a simple one to people who've never heard of it before, we love having things untangled for us. A well-written blog post takes people beyond the short attention span news coverage that's so common these days. If your local news station says, the mill rate's going to be raised by X percent according to the city planner, in other news, explain that. Tell me why I should care. And you're gaining credibility with your readers because you are paying attention. And in part, you're paying attention so we don't have to. But a lot of people don't think beyond the headlines. They see the headline, they grumble, they grouse, they move on, but they're not actually thinking about it. If you write a really good essay about bike lanes or whatever, you may make them think about life differently. And some people actually avoid news sites, help them. Pull up the important topics of the day and help them. And another benefit of this is you can create dialogue. You can have other people write in and say, I think bike lanes are stupid, and here's why. And other people will chime in. I've been commuting by bike for X years. I've lost 20 pounds. My cholesterol is great, and I've saved so much money on insurance and other things. I really love these bike lanes. Or from somebody who says, my car got repoed because I'm out of work. God bless the bike lanes. It helps people think about topics differently. Even if they don't agree, at least they're thinking, we hope. Feeding the blog beast, does that sound daunting? All I can say is get used to it if you want to keep blogging. And apparently you do, because here you are at this conference, and here you are in this room. It would be great if topics dropped from the air into our laps, well-researched, pre-written, pre-digested. Newsflash, they don't. The good news is that ideas are everywhere, and they're waiting to be picked. So start looking. Keep looking. The readers deserve your best, so give it to them. And I'm afraid that is it, so I hope you have a lot of questions. Who has a question for me? And if not, did anybody bring a deck of cards? Yes, sir, in the back.
I've got a question about blog swapping.
Blog swapping? The question is about blog swapping.
And interesting what people's thoughts on that in terms of SEO and Google. Because I know that there was theory, wasn't it, that it's not, guest blog is not liked by Google, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to be much has happened to anyone with that. People keep swapping. So.
The question has to do with SEO and blog swapping. I don't mean, what I guess I should have clarified, I meant swap original posts.
Yes, but even so, I think there was a thing, SEO, people told me that there was a guy, I think it was Matt, you probably, people here will know much more than I do on this, but there was a guy called Matt Cups or something, and a while ago he said, a few years ago, oh, it's not a good idea, we don't like people to do guest blogging.
So guest posts are not. I am not aware of that. I hope I haven't given anyone bad advice, but Joe has some information on this.
I've been blogging for a long time, and there was a time that we were doing guest posts with the purpose of having links back into it. What Donna's talking about basically is, we hook up here, you write an original article, there's no link back to your site, more than to say this is a guest post by. And you don't even need to have a link. You can just have your name. If I write a guest post for somebody, I'm not necessarily looking for more than just put my name there. A reader could just put my name back into Google and find my site.
Yes.
The idea is to have original content. Your site might be just different enough from mine that one of your readers, or a number of them, hopefully, will read the article and say, wow, here's a new author. It's discovering a new author. I think that's Donna's
Oh, yeah.
point.
I get
So,
that. I think it's brilliant.
but you're okay. So short form is you don't necessarily even have to link back to the author. You can say this is a guest post by Joe from Average Joe Taxes or whatever. I can't remember the name of your Joe Taxpayer. Joe from Joe Taxpayer has kindly agreed to give me a post this week, and then even if there's no link, the people will think Joe Taxpayer. I got to check that out. But yeah, mention the person's name and/or site. But yeah, I don't think it's going to mess up your SEO. I hope that's not incorrect. But because, good Lord, the big blogs do it all the time. This is a guest post by.
That's what's so weird about it. You kind of see people doing it. And you hear
Yeah. Oh, well. Were there other questions? Well, I hope so.
So is a follow-up done at that point? If you swap or if you have a link back to your site, that actually messages you?
Oh, shoot. No, I don't believe it does. I seem to have lost my badge. Has anybody found a loose badge? Looking for a good home. No, I don't believe it messes with your SEO. I'm not a Google expert, though, so perhaps I've given bad information. But I don't see how it could, because places like Wisebread and Get Rich Slowly, they have guest posts all the time in addition to their staffers. So, I guess they link back. I don't know whether what Joe was saying is still correct or what he was saying is still correct. I would at least put the person's name in. Average Joe has gone ahead and given me this post. Thank you, Joe. Go check him out, readers, and they can find him on their own. So, yeah. Yes, sir?
About how long or how in-depth should you go with the typical blog post?
The question is how long or how in-depth should you go? Some topics don't need very much, and some people are saying 500 words is too much. I disagree. If they're really well-chosen words, I think people will read a long-form post. I think that when you put it up and you do the WordPress thing, it says at least 350 words. I always go beyond that because I talk a lot, but I also try to avoid extraneous words. I write about this in my course, too. Don't use so many words that you're separating the reader from your point. Liz Weston once wrote a column about some kind of economic catastrophe that everybody was terrified about. And her short form feeling was, people are bemoaning this particular thing, and I'm sorry I can't remember it, it's early. It's not the end of the world. Don't listen to people who tell you that it is. And that got people's attention versus everyone's been talking about topic X, and I was worried about it, and I bet a lot of you were too. So I did my own research, and I read a lot, and I found out that, well, snore, people have already left you. They don't care. They want you to put it right up front. The economic whatever is not the end of your world. Here's why. I've got to keep reading because I need you to tell me why, because I will feel better after reading your post. So don't use so much words that people can't find your point. Way in the back? I'm sorry, what are my what? The success metrics for a blog post. I'm something of a dinosaur. I don't use I don't have an idea, and I say I'm not going to get enough hits for this, so I'm not going to write it. Is that what you mean? Or you have to have certain things? I think you just have to have a good story well told, and sometimes that can be a big, complicated topic in the news right now, but it could also be something really simple or even something funny. I'm not much help here. Find a story and tell it. If you can't get started, think about the part that excites or intrigues you the most, or the part you want to tell somebody right away as soon as you learn it. That's probably your lead right there. Or pick up the phone and tell your friend, I'm writing on this post. I can't believe the statistic, but apparently 98% of millennials are all going to die broke. There's your lead. According to the whatever agency, 98% of millennials are going to die broke. Millennials are going to have to read that post because they're hoping they're in the 2%. That's not much help. I don't have a metric. I just find a story and I tell it. But I've been writing for 32 years, and I was in newspapers, so I'm really fast at finding what we call the nut graph, which has nothing to do with the sanity of the author. It's the absolute nut or core of the story, and it's got to be right up here, and it's got to grab me. Yes?
So do you have a newspaper background?
Yes, sir.
I've been looking at a lot of sort of magazine editorial contents to manage things over time. Do you do any sort of structure like that, or are you?
Well, I've written for magazines, too. Some people outline. I do not, because, again, I tend to have the article in my head already.
Outline your entire year out.
No, I don't outline. Some people schedule posts 6 months in advance. God bless them. I have trouble scheduling a morning shower, okay? I just never know what's going on in my life. But I do think about the evergreens. Christmas is coming or whatever. I do think about that, but I try to get beyond and please don't use this phrase, it's that time again. Just tell us what time it is, okay? Just say, the National Retail Foundation says you're about to spend $1,100. What? Because that's what the average person will spend on Christmas, according to this study. I call BS, and here's why. Or, heck, I spent twice as much as that last year, and here's why. Because we bought things that were worth buying. So I do some regional, some seasonal stuff, but I never schedule out. There's a hand back there. Yes, you.
So I think along those same lines is sort of trying to get someone to write for your blog who maybe has another blog. So I do a lot of blogging for financial advisors. And so one time we were like, it'd be really great is if we hit up a bunch of financial advisors and we were like, hey, why don't you contribute to our blog? And they're just like crickets.
Well, yeah.
So I guess I'm wondering whether you or anyone else here has like specific tactics that you used in order to make that possible, or in order to like really engage your audience and get your audience to start contributing to your blog.
Okay, the question has to do with getting your audience to contribute as well as maybe professionals. Professionals are really busy. I mean, we're all busy. And imagine if after you've worked all day and you're working on your blog, somebody calls you and says, you don't mind contributing 1,100 words to this thing, and could I have it Tuesday? You might think, sure, I can do that, or no way in hell. But to get readers to, the old saw about having a question at the end of your blog, it works a lot of the time. What's your experience with bike lanes? Or bike lanes, great idea, or it's tool of the devil? Your call. To get people talking, you just have to give them something to talk about. I have a regular group of readers on my personal website, DonnaFreedman.com, but there are always new ones coming in, and I guess it's a chatty bunch because I never have posts with no comments. And I think, too, make it a welcoming place. Don't shoot people down even if you don't agree with them. And even if they attack you personally, you can, of course, delete it. But try to engage them in conversation. Unless it's an obvious troll. I mean, somebody left a comment like, you are boring and pathetic. And I wrote something like, thanks for stopping by, or whatever. But yeah, make it a place people want to talk. That sounds really nebulous, but if you are writing good stuff that makes people think, they're going to busting to share their opinion. Because you're wrong about the bike lanes, and here's why. I mean, sorry, the gentleman here.
Yeah, you mentioned some research and
Well, try to look for a reputable agency, and it may be government, it may be the Mayo Clinic, it may be something else, but somebody who is selling essential oils is going to put up some website and say 80% of all illnesses could be cured by essential oils. Well, the person who wants to sell you the oils is telling you that. So just keep it in mind. It may be true, but he may have some vitamins he wants to sell you as well. So if somebody who says you can cure autism with peppermint oil applied to the inside of the wrist, yeah, you might want to check that with some neurologists and reputable sources. But I guess just Google. It helps to get on mailing lists for agencies that cover what you cover. If that sounds nebulous. Okay, suppose you're contacted by an insurance group or a financial planner group, and they say, we have this new study. Give it a look, and even if you can't use that one, say, this one's not a match, but please keep me on your mailing list, and maybe 15 months later you'll find the match. You'll write a post, and it won't be about bike lanes. But yeah, don't spend half a day researching because, no. You're not being paid a salary to do this. You're being paid by your, AdSense or whatever. Yeah, right. There's a lady in the back. Is it Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy Christoph. Famous Kathy Christoph.
There's a trade association for almost everything.
Yeah, trade associations. Good point. Yes. If you're writing about Gazingas pins or whatever, there's got to be a Gazingas pins trade group out there. Go look them up. National Retail Federation is great. AAA is great. There's PR Newswire and PR Web. There are press releases online as news stories, but there's information in them you can take. If it's an insurance group reacting to the National Transportation Safety Board's latest statistics, just take the information and run with it. You don't necessarily have to write about an insurance trade group that says how great insurance is, but use the information to make up your own mind. Is there anybody? Oh, lady there?
You mentioned you have regular readers. How do you balance writing for the people you know keep coming back and the fact that you have to write generally for new readers also?
So the question is, how do you keep your regular readers happy, but how do you keep bringing them in? I don't really know the answer to that because, again, it always comes back to me. Write really well, write compelling stuff, and keep commenting on other people's blogs, and maybe a reader will drift over. Sometimes when you're mentioned on another blog, I noticed that day my About button has suddenly gotten 40 hits, and I think, oh, where am I? And I go and look under referrals, and it turns out that Joe wrote about me today, and some people are coming over to see who this woman is. Don't pander, obviously, and try to write about the Kardashians because everybody's writing about the Kardashians. I think at the end of the day, you're writing for yourself, and that doesn't much help if you want to be commercial, as in be paid for what you do. I have a post called Information Wants to Be Free, Writers Want to Be Paid, and that covers that a lot because everybody thinks you should do this for love. Well, your love gives me such a thrill, but your love don't pay my bills. That's pretty much it. At the end of the day, it's for me, and my site is what I call my playground for words. It was where I put all the stuff I couldn't get on MSN Money or Get Rich Slowly. So I could have columns that are called things like Who Would Jesus Strafe and that sort of thing. Writers want to be paid. Nobody's going to pay me to write that article, so I have to write it for myself. But as it turns out, a lot of people agree. So do we have time for anything else? Yes, in the front.
How do you
Aaliyah.
balance coming up with ideas for your own blog versus your clients?
Oh, the question is how do you balance working for your own blog as well as your clients? I would say clients, I'm afraid, have to come first. If that's how you're making your living, you got to pay the bills. And there's another chapter in my writing course that's about making time to write. There's a lot of different ways you can carve time out of your day to write, and also writing prompts to get you going and then walk away from it. I'm not trying to shill for the course. I'm trying to explain that sometimes you have to give up time of things you think you want to do things you want to do more. How many of us spend, just check in on Facebook and say, oh, look, a picture of my friend's new baby. Oh, look, cats. Oh, look, that. And before you know it, it's sucked you in for 40 minutes. Well, what could you have done with that 40 minutes? In fact, I suggest you try, I call it a phantom deadline. You get your topic if you have one. I know I want to write this article about whatever. I just don't have time to start it. Well, set a timer for 20 minutes, sit down and write like hell. And when the timer goes off, stop. And ideally, you're having so much fun, you say, to heck with it. I'm not going back on Facebook. I'm not going to watch that episode of Walking Dead. I'm going to write this. Or in the worst case scenario, it's 1 a.m. I've got to go to bed. But when you get up in the morning, there's a post half written. And having a phantom deadline, pretend there's an editor and he's really big and really mean and really, I need this now. And again, from newspapers, they would be saying, I need this right now. Finish it. So you have to finish it. But if you give yourself the deadline and you say, I'll do this, and then I'll go have that double-dip ice cream cone I promised myself, you'll at least have a start. And how many people, once I get started, it's okay, but I can't start because it won't be perfect, or I don't know what the lead is, or I'm not sure I can do this, so I'm not going to start. I'll do it later. And then 2 weeks go by. But if you have the phantom deadline working for you, you'd be surprised what comes out of your fingertips in 20 minutes. Any? Kathy? Hi, Kathy Christoph in the back. She's full of questions.
The detriment of setting up your website as a website versus as a blog? Is it?
I'm afraid I don't know the difference. A website as in, I am a professional writer, and you can hire me, and here are my 3 books, and here's my take on life, versus a blog?
Setting it up as like topics and, and you have, it's really a formatting question, right? As opposed to starting with whatever you did today and then having on the side full posts as opposed to having a website designed like a newspaper website.
I don't really think, I'm sorry, I don't think about design and such like that. I just sit down and write what I write. But by the way, there's a guy here named Grayson Bell. Has everybody met him yet? He will, if you are not yet blogging and thinking about it, or you know someone who wants to, he will set up a WordPress site for free for anybody who's interested. I think it's imarkinteractive.com, but you can find him. He's here, or if not, let me know, and I'll put you in touch with him. He will set up your site for free because he wants people to blog. So, Grayson Bell, and I am not being paid to say that. He's just a good guy. He's also my guru, my web guru. He keeps care of it, so I don't have to. I think we've run over, but nobody's kicking us out. But you have to go somewhere, go. But if you have questions, please stick around. And thanks for getting up early. Were there any unanswered questions that I can answer as before you leave? Nope. Go away then. Oh, you do. I'm sorry. It's loud. I can't hear you.
You know what? I've just launched. Is it that awful?
Oh. You don't. Okay. Oh. Okay, the question is, what if you want to write about the same topic for both your client and yourself? For your client, it's likely to be less personal, I would think, and more professional. Many, according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 40% of Americans don't have a budget because they're afraid, they don't know how. And then give them your Mint.com, Power Wallet, you need a budget. Here are some ways to get started. Or here is my bonehead simple way to budget. For your own site, it might be, I didn't budget and my money was all over the map, and that's how I found out I was spending $6,000 a year on burritos. So it's more personal for you, but also shored up with all the important, if not statistics, how-to. Because you don't just want to tell them, oh, I'm a mess with money, are you? I was a mess with money, and here's how I got out of it, and it is really easy, and you can take charge of your money. But you would do it differently for a client. You would still have the same message of here's how to take control of your money. But with your personal blog, you're inviting readers in and saying, like Lauren did at that talk last night, I'm not perfect, and here's how I helped myself. Maybe this will help you too. So yeah, definitely write it more personal for yourself and less for your client. Yes, sir?
I have a question. What's an alternate phrase, or what's an alternate way to say we've all been there? Like I noticed you saying.
The question was, what's an alternate way to say we've all been there? Short form is I don't think there is one because you're assuming too much about, there are very few universal experiences. Like we've all been sick too, but I've been sick in a small way in various times in my life. My daughter was 99% paralyzed and on life support for a couple of months. So to say, oh, I had the flu and I just thought I was going to die and oh, poor me, and then I think, yeah, she was on life support. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. So if you say a lot of us have faced this struggle, or many of us with student loan debt balance, how do I pay my debts versus how do I have a life? Not we've all been there, because some people are handling their loans quite well. But again, if you say many of us, it invites the reader in to think, I'm not alone. It isn't just me who can't balance my budget. I'm normal, I'm human, I can fix this. And then you give them the tools, and they do the work, but you're giving them the tools.
So just in general, just don't make the assumption.
Don't make huge, I used to make this joke with people, all generalizations are bad, all of them, and see if people get it. Generalizations, unfortunately, do tend to be wrong, because so much of personal finance advice from ivory towers, as it were, they have the same underpinnings. And I'm going to read this to you. Because the thing about personal finance blogs is they can be personal, and they can make people feel better because they're not reading a site that says, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're bad, how could you get into debt? What were you thinking? And that's the underlying assumption from a lot of these. Okay. What you won't find in this book, victim blaming. The financial advice from ivory towers, and sometimes even from popular bloggers, too often has the same underpinnings. If you're in money trouble, it's probably your own damn fault. You must be shiftless and or stupid. But you can fix things by cutting back on lattes, selling your toys, getting a side hustle, using the envelope system. It's not always that simple, and the last few suggestions aren't bad advice as such, but core issues like being born into poverty and or an economically depressed region, stagnant salaries, lack of education, or its opposite, high student loans, tax increases, and health problems can't be solved with a handful of coupons and a brown bag lunch. So when you're writing advice for people, remember that some of them, no matter how good your advice, get a budget. That's great advice because it helps them take care of the money they have right now. It's not helping their core issues. So what you're doing is giving them daily tools to stay alive, but you also have to give them the hope that they can get better. And if they keep coming back to your site and reading how you have improved your life or this great new tool or hack you found, they think, maybe I can change my life too. But so many of the people who write personal finance, I won't say so many, that's a generalization. There's this underlying assumption that there's something wrong with you. How in the world did you get into debt? That was so dumb. Well, a lot of people are in debt for darn good reasons. Medical issues, unemployment, underemployment. My rent went up $100, and I don't know where that's coming from. And they are the ones who really need the most help, but there's not enough out there for them. And I'm on tangent a bit, but when you say to them, a lot of people struggle with this debt issue, they're thinking, oh, thank God I read his blog because I thought I was a bad person. You're not letting them off the hook. You're saying you have to fix your life, but here are some tools that will help you. And so whenever people write and say, I read this article and I've been reading you since MSN and now I'm out of debt, thank you so much. And I'm saying, well, you're welcome, but you did the work. I gave you the tools. Make sure you acknowledge their work that they've done. If they respond to your blog post and say, I tried what you suggested and we're saving $80 a month on groceries. Oh my God, that's thank you so much. And you're thinking, well, you're welcome. But it's like, I gave you the lumber and the nails and the hammer. I didn't build the shed, you built it. So anyway, that was a bit off tangent. But remember that not everybody's in the same place. Please remember that because, yeah, we haven't all been there. There was a question here, sir?
I apologize if this is out of the scope of
hey, it's wide open at this point.
But once you've created a really great blog post,
Mm-hmm.
you want as many people to see it. So what's the best way to get it out there?
I'm not sure there's a best way. There's a whole bunch of ways. You hope that lightning will strike and you will go viral, which is a very strange mixed metaphor. I don't know it. You comment on other people's blogs, and then they come back and comment on yours. That takes some time, and you have to make the comment substantive. You can't just say, great post, Lindsay. I wrote a post like that myself, and put the link in there. not kosher. Try to read a lot of other people's blogs, put your stuff out there, tweet it out, use the hashtags that people are looking for, like student loan debt or whatever. When you're at a conference like this, try to get to know people who will link to you or do. Anybody here do post roundups? I haven't done them lately, but sometimes I'll do. I've read 3 really interesting articles this week. Here they are, and link to the people. It's really hard to say how to do it. You just have to get out there and start pitching. At places like this, there's going to be a freelancer marketplace. Is anybody going? Once you start writing for these other groups, you will get more eyes because they have more eyes, because they are bankrate.com or whatever, and they have millions of readers. Sorry, there's not a whole lot of, you just have to get in and start swinging and see what connects. There was a lady with a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I started writing and I started putting out a weekly newsletter. And it was a roundup. I just like to read and I figured out a way to justify all the reading that I do.
Yay,
So I just
reading.
put out like 7 to 10 weeks of polygraph that I think my audience will enjoy. And people, I put mine on first and it gets the most clicks. So it's a little tricky, like a bit of a trick. But it also, it's been great. It's been the only way that I've been able to.
So are you talking about writing a post that says, I've read 11 interesting articles on education this week at these sites, or are you talking about books?
So I send out an email newsletter.
Oh, okay. The subject now is email newsletters. This is how she gets people's attention?
Yeah, so it's a newsletter with like 7 to 10 links of interesting things, but the first link is always like my latest book. So that's the first
Okay.
one.
Now, I guess the next question would be, okay, I've created an email newsletter with my most interesting post of the week and 6 others. How to build an email mailing list is really the tricky part, and that's going to be somebody else's. And speaking of mailing lists, nice segue, I have some sheets around here. If you haven't signed up, I'm giving away an hour of free writing coaching or any 3 lessons from the Write a Blog People Will Read course. And by signing up, you are opting into my biweekly newsletter. And if you can't face another newsletter in your life, just put an asterisk by your name and I will not enter you. I don't want to be a pest. My newsletter is not usually about waxing rhapsodic about writing. It's about, hey, there's this free webinar. There's a free thing you can do. Here's a funny quote about writing. I just wrote this thing on my writing newsletter about this topic. So, yeah, I do pitch my own stuff. And occasionally other people's sites as well. But it has to do with writing in some way. And this is the quote I'd like to leave with, because I think they will kick us out soon. A fellow who tweets under the name It's Joe Hunt, he tweeted this. Let's see if I can paraphrase it. A barista spends 60 seconds making you a $5 coffee, and you tip him. A writer spends up to a year on a book, and you complain that $4.99 is just too much. So it's frustrating when you're writing and you want people to read you, and you think, but it's only $6.99 or whatever, and they're saying, I don't want to spend $6.99 on a book. I've got to get my nails done, or I'm drinking this coffee, or I want to get the new iPhone. It's priorities. You just have to give them a reason to want to come and read you. And there's been a few times in the past year when I've kind of slacked on my blogging, and when I come back, I say, sorry, it's been a week. Here's my latest post. And it isn't usually that personal. It's usually a topic I'm writing about. And people will leave comments like, we'll wait. I like reading you. I will come back. So if you can build a group of readers and you respect them, I think they will respect you as well. And not just giving them a reason to come back, but making it a place where they feel they have a say. Saying that you can come into this room and sit, but you can't say a word, I'm just going to talk at you, and none of you speak, is going to be kind of boring. And it's the same on a blog when you think about it. It's your little virtual, again, my playground for words is what I do, so that I can write whatever I want without thinking my client is going to say, no, you can't use that word. It's just fun for me. It's time consuming and it's starting to wear me out, but I feel like I can't abandon my friends. But if you're worried about, is anybody reading this, that's totally normal. When I wrote a post when my blog hit, I think it's first 500,000 views. And I wrote that if writers are the most insecure people in the world, then blogging is proof that self-doubt has a sub-basement, Because I'm writing this blog and I'm the 2 a.m. disc jockey thinking, is anybody even hearing me? I'm on the radio, and has anybody got the radio on right now? But it's like that with blogging. I don't know if anybody's reading it until somebody comments. And even if it's, you're boring and pathetic, like, well, how nice of you to say so. Yeah, troll. I've been really lucky with trolls. At MSN, I got some trolls. I got some nasty trolls, really. I know I need to develop a thicker skin, but I think that comments like, die, cunt, die, are a little over the top. So, yeah, my boss said flag those. Those are threats, so I flagged them after that. There's always going to be somebody who wants to get a rise out of you, and whether or not you choose to wrestle with that particular pig is up to you, but it's usually not worth it. Sometimes I will engage if I believe they're wrong. I don't know how you feel about the musical, The Book of Mormon. I went to see it in New York. I finally won the Mormon lottery, and I got to see it for $32. Front row. The guy behind me paid $500 American for his ticket. Well, I wrote about how a frugalist does New York, and I did all the things. I won that ticket. I stayed at the hostel. I used the megabus. And this woman wrote in and just ripped me a new one about how appalling the Book of Mormon was, and I had to review it, and I almost walked out. It was disgusting, and it made fun of this and that. And I'm not good at confrontation, but I thought, you have your right to your opinion, but you're wrong. And no, I just said, here's what I thought about the play. It was not making fun of this. It was using humor to point out this. And it is strong. It is not for everybody, but it is not trash. And so, and other people wrote in and said, who pushed in her Cheerios this morning? My gosh, you don't have to like the play, but you don't have to tell the writer she's an idiot for liking it. But usually I don't engage. Although it's good because you don't want your blog to be an echo chamber telling you how great you are. If somebody writes in and says, I don't agree with your thing about budgeting because, you can engage and say, here's why budgeting can work in this situation, and have you tried this? And then sometimes, this is the best part, readers will do that. They'll say, yeah, we have kids and I'm at home too, but here's what I did to save $20 a month, and now we have an emergency fund. And people will write in, oh my God, that's brilliant. I never tried that hack. I'm trying it right now. And you think, oh, they're talking to one another. This is great. It's like having a kindergarten. And they're not fighting. It's wonderful. Nobody's peeing and fighting and crying. I don't know if they're going to. Yes, please do. They're not kicking us out. I say, keep talking. 4 minutes.
Your blog, it comes across as so honest, but then when I sit down and want to try to channel that and be honest in my own writings, it's such a vulnerable feeling. How do you overcome that?
Oh, that's an excellent question. She says, being honest, you want to sit down and be honest and make yourself a little vulnerable to the readers, but it leaves you feeling too vulnerable. I would say anything that makes you feel vulnerable, hit save draft and look at it again the next day, because you might think, no, or not now. I can't do it now. I'm too raw, or my job. There's a lady here who's blogging under Our Next Life. She and her husband are anonymous because they're planning to retire next year, but their bosses don't know that. So they're young. They're 39. They're going to be 39 and 41. So their pictures on the blog, they're wearing masks. And she's here with no name on her thing, just in case. They don't want them to know. So they blog under a pseudonym, and they don't say exactly what industry they're in. You might want to do that, too. If you're feeling vulnerable, don't do it. Or bounce it off another writer friend who says, are you feeling vulnerable because this would damage you, or are you feeling vulnerable because you're embarrassed to admit you spent $6,000 on burritos one year? Readers love fails. But if you think you're going to be piled on, and sometimes people do, take that part out or hint at it, but don't say it. And in my own life, I've found some pretty embarrassing money leaks. Here's how I fixed them doesn't hold you up to public scorn. It says, yeah, I messed up. Here's how I fixed it. But it doesn't say how you messed up. So for the video, she was talking about how, as a financial coach, she had her budget all set, and then some people came in from out of town. I think I'm getting this right. And it was a choice, okay, do I go out with them, or do I stay on budget? And yeah, I blew my budget for the week. And I think that's a great example of a fail, because life happens. And they're from out of town. Okay, do I say, oh no, I'm going to eat peanut butter at home because you're only in town once a year, but I've got a budget. And that's another reason to have an emergency fund. You can squeeze out that extra 40 and then work to put it back over the next little while, and that itself is a separate post. Remember last week when I blew my budget? Link to it, and they all go back and read it a second time. Here's how I found the extra $40 over the next 2 weeks without pain, without selling plasma. My e-fund is back where it was. Next time you have a problem that you didn't expect, remember that the e-fund's there for a reason, but it is not a piggy bank.
I mean, I even roll mine over in mint.com, so the next month I'm like paying for the $20 I went over.
So excellent. I mean, it's a great fail because, again, life happens. Nobody expects to end up on life support at 19 and unable to work for years, but it happens. And now she writes, by the way, at ipickuppennies.net, and she didn't expect to do it, and her thing is imperfect frugality. Not everybody handles money the same way for whatever reason. We haven't all been there. But writing about that itself, a fail or a special circumstance. Yes, I'm at home with a special needs child. I don't do money the way you do money. And all the special needs child's parents are going, thank you. No judgment, just acknowledgement. But anyway, I've talked enough. Don't let readers off the hook. Thank you. Don't let readers off the hook, but don't make them feel like jerks because they're human. But again, by not letting them off the hook, they can't continue to act like jerks and say, well, I just couldn't help it. Those shoes were so cute. Or my buddies were all going to that thing and I had to go with them. Well, no, you chose to go with them. Now, how are you going to choose to put back the money you just blew and you're sorry about and you wish you had back? Well, you can get it back. It just means making a choice somewhere else. Anyway, I'm all about intentional. My mantra is save where you can so you can spend where you want. But that's that way in life, too. I can choose to go backpacking around the world, but that means 2 years when I'm not paying into Social Security. That is my choice. I'm going to live right now, and then I'm going to get back and be smarter about money so that I can play when I want to play. And I am talking too much. Thank you.